Welcome to another episode on the Little Fellas Sports Podcast. So, on the back of an enthralling series win down under in Australia by the Indian cricket team, we are now set for our home season, which will start with a four Test match series against England. And today, to preview the four Test match series against England, we have a special guest with us, Gurkirat Singh Gill. Gurkirat on behalf of the team. And we have Shreyas as well joining us. He's been part of the podcast before. So, as I said at the beginning, we've had one enthralling series down under where India have emerged against all odds to thump Australia 2-1 and retain the Border Gavaskar Trophy. The aftermath of the series has still not left the Indian fans, but now we have a very spicy four Test match series against England, which also was the key for our qualification to the World Test Championship finals at Lords. So, Gurkirat, starting off with you, what are your thoughts on the series win down under? Because as I said before, it's still not left us. We are still in the hangover of that series win. So, what are your thoughts on the series win down under?
So, like I said, thank you for having me here. And as far as this Border Gavaskar Trophy is concerned, I said it before. So I am from those generation of Indian cricket fans who did not get to watch Kolkata 2001 live or NatWest 2002 live. So
Yeah.
for me, the Brisbane Test and this whole series was an amalgamation of those two big wins in one format. And I mean. It's easily the biggest win if is easily the biggest win that I can think of in terms of how it came around, how the situation was, considering it came at Gabba. Uh, I actually did a little research and found out that amongst the 11 players who were playing in the Indian 11, the last time Australia lost at Gabba, eight of them weren't even born, and only Ajinkya Rahane, Rohit Sharma, and Cheteshwar Pujara were born, and they were hardly 1 or 2 years old. So that also explains the magnitude of the win at Gabba. So and I think the way how the whole series was shaping up, I don't think Indian fans would have lamented too much even if India would have gone on to lost. But considering how everything turned out and how India bounced back after each and every blow in each and every test, commendable performance. I think this is one performance which anyone and everyone who's been associated with the team or has been following Indian cricket will be extremely happy about and be proud about. I still sort of play those visuals and that voiceover of Vivek Razdan after India had hit those winning runs to sort of rejoice that win again and again. So, but yes, in less than a week from now or in a week from now, another challenge is coming up, and I hope the Indian team is up and prepared for it. And yeah, I mean, I expect a good contest, but I do feel that India, despite a few players missing, should be coming out on top.
Yeah, that is so aptly put, Gurkirat. As you said, even me, I still go to cricket.com.ao's YouTube channel and keep playing the final moments of the test match because I've still not gotten over it. It's a feeling. It's a once in a lifetime feeling. I'm not sure if Indian cricket will feel this sort of a high here again, but I just want to cherish this moment for as long as
Yeah,
possible.
just want to add, as someone who's seen India struggle so much, I've seen that 2011, 2012 cycle, and I think no other series or no other period has defined helplessness in Indian cricket as much as that cycle. You
Yeah,
would sort of wake up, you would see that before lunch or before the first session, half the team is all out. If Australia is batting, they have scored runs at more than 4 runs per over. I remember, thinking that if I had prepared myself before the Gabba test that it could be something like Perth 2012, where Vinay Kumar made his debut. India got all out for 160 odd, and David Warner within one session had taken off the entire deficit. So I prepared myself for that, and I remember very clearly, how the New Zealand tour in 2014 was, how we were unable to close matches. We were unable to close a match in Johannesburg 2013. We were unable to close a match in Wellington 2014. We were unable to close a similar Adelaide 2014. Everyone knows. So there have been so many scars that this almost feels surreal. You sort of try and think that did this really happen? I mean, we've been such pushovers overseas that you sort of still don't believe it to a large extent. And there are reasons for it, because you've seen how the team has struggled. You've seen how, even when we played well in 2008, how we were robbed of uh, a win in Sydney because of poor umpiring, and then we were unable to close match. Also in Sydney 2004, when we had to bowl out Australia on the final day. So there have been enough. There have been enough things that have played a part in India not winning a Test series in Australia. And when India won a Test series with a C side or a D side, or with a bowling attack that had only 11 wickets, because two of them were by Rohit Sharma out of the 13, it does feel surreal, and especially at the Gambit. So no words enough.
Yeah, yeah, those are very true words, Gurkirat. Yeah, even I actually compared the win to Sydney. I actually considered it to be redemption for Sydney 2008 and Adelaide 2004 because 2014, sorry, because those were two matches that really hit my heart hard. And now that we were able to do it at the Gabba against all odds, it just gave me an unreal feeling. So
Mhm.
before we proceed to Shreyas, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We have a ton of content coming up for this England series. So Shreyas, starting off with you, what are your thoughts on the Gabba win? I mean, Gurkirat covered most of it, but
Yeah,
would you like to add anything to what Gurkirat said?
yeah. I mean, we have already spoken about it in the previous podcast. So this is something special for Indian cricket, and even as a fan for me, I grew up watching. I mean, I started to watch Test cricket from the Australia 2004 away series. So that was a very good series, and of course, you don't know the nuances back then, but still, as a kid, you are able to sense what's happening. So one other test after that, Australia come to India for another test series. Sadly, we lose it 2-1, but I still had that chance to go to the Chennai test. That should have been ours. Unlucky, it was rain on the final day. So we've had our fair share of unlucky moments. As Gurkir told, Sydney 2008 and first 2012 was the lowest that I've ever seen live. So that absolutely rattled me. Vinay Kumar starting the bowling attack for India at first. I mean, it couldn't get worse. So after that, it's such a great feeling to see India redeem itself and go with the third choice bowling attack and fight it out and win it at the Gabba. I mean, surreal. Just can't explain. There's no words.
Just want to add another thing. Uh, Even in England 2011, so first
Yeah,
Test match, Zahir Khan got injured, and we were playing because we went in with four bowlers. Harbhajan got injured after the second Test match. Ishant Sharma got injured after the third Test match. I remember RP Singh coming off a vacation, and he was literally jogging in his run up, bowling in 120s. So as someone who's seen those days, which I feel has been one, like I said, it defined what helplessness was in Indian cricket. Like, despite having a population of 1.3, of more than 1 billion people, not 1.3 at that time, we couldn't put 11 fit players on the park. I had huge fears that Rohit Sharma, coming back and joining the Test side could be very similar to Virender Sehwag in 2011 England. He travels
yeah.
all the way to Gora King pair and getting out for zero first ball luck in both innings. Thankfully, that didn't happen. So there have been these scars. So, like I said, feels surreal from whichever way you look at it.
True. Both Gurkirat and Shreyas have shared their thoughts on how much this Gabba win means to us Indian fans, and I think with that, it's probably time to just shift to the real topic of focus today, and that is the India England series. So this India England series carries a lot of importance from the World Test Championship point of view. We've seen a lot of score lines doing the rounds, and the simple task for India is win three tests and make sure you don't lose more than one. And we are definitely through to the finals at Lords, probably against New Zealand, who look to be favorites to reach the final. So, Gurkirat, starting off with you, uh, this is the first cricket tournament that's going to happen in India, first international cricket tournament per se. It's just going to be played in two venues, Chennai and the new Motera Stadium. So, given the conditions, given the squads, how do you think the series will pan out?
See, if you see how India has played Test cricket at home in the last decade, pitches really don't make a difference. I mean, People think that India need to like if there's a rank turner there, it's going to be difficult. But I feel the opposite. I think when there's a rank turner, it's the biggest chance for any visiting team to beat India, because what happens then is that the quality between the spinners of two sides is minimal, because the pitch is doing enough. If there are rank turners, you will have a Michael Clark taking a 6 for 9, or a Stephen O'Keefe taking 12 wickets in a test match, and then changing things. It didn't work out. And when you have spinners like Monty Panesar and Graham Swan, as how they were in Mumbai 2012, it becomes all the more difficult. So I don't think there's a need for rank turner, and I think pitches will be very similar to what they were in 2016 when England toured. It's just that that showed how strong the Indian team was at home, because England scored 400 in the first innings in Mumbai and still lost by an innings. They scored 477 in Chennai in the first innings and still lost by an innings. So regardless of the how pitches are, I think India should back themselves to win 3-0. As far as the 11s are concerned, I do feel that India could go in with three seamers if the pitches have a little bit of bounce. Especially how in the pink ball test, I definitely see that happening. I definitely see India playing three seamers. Maybe Hardik Pandya is drafted for that test match only, because he gives you an option to be the fourth seamer. Also, how the SMAT matches have progressed in Motera. You do feel that there is going to be some assistance for pacers. So I think in the two test matches that would be in Motera, India would go in with three pacers and two spinners, because I am pretty sure that are going to go with five bowlers, which has been the norm, for some time, especially since Virat Kohli has taken over as captain. In Chennai, it could happen that India go in with two pacers, Ashwin and Kuldeep, and the fifth bowler could be Washington Sundar or an Akshar Patel. Feel that at this point of time, it could be Washington Sundar because of his performance in Gabba, and I think the top six will more or less select itself. It would be interesting, if India goes back to Riddhiman Saha after what Pant has done in these test series, because I feel that they shouldn't. I feel they should persist with Pant. In test matches, drop chances cost you more when there are not enough chances created. In India, invariably Indian spinners and Indian bowlers are going to create enough chances. So even if say Pant drops a couple or more, it not saying it is ideal, but I am saying that it would not affect the Indian team that much in terms of the result. And I think that is the only way Pant can improve going forward, because you also have to see what are the respective ages of two keepers you have in the team. Riddhiman Saha doesn't have a lot of cricket left in him. Maybe even if he's very fit, he'll probably play till 40. He's already 36, 37. And as far as Rishabh Pant is concerned, he has good, I think, 15 years of cricket left in 15 years of cricket in him. So you have to invest accordingly and see. So that should be the case. But I think England sort of missed a trick in not having Mark Wood for the first two test matches, because they feel that they need to play the two spinners in Dom Bess and Jack Leach. But I've always felt that you should play your best possible bowlers who you think can take wickets. And I don't think that Jack Leach and Dom Bess are of the same quality as Monty Panesar and Graham Swan. I think that if they play just one spinner and four pacers, they are better suited to. Because what happens on subcontinental pitches is that after day two or day three, pitches sort of die down. You need that extra pace. And with Mark Wood not being there for two test matches, I think they're going to miss that. I still think that England would have been better suited if they would have played if they would have played a bowling attack of say Anderson, Archer, and Wood instead of Anderson, Archer, and Broad. If they wanted to play Broad, they should have played four pacers, because, like I said, I don't think that the two spinners can do enough to trouble Indian batsmen. And it would be really deceptive. Like England would have been really deceptive into playing both the spinners, because of how because if they just go by their figures against Sri Lanka, the test matches that just concluded, especially the second innings, there was not a single wicket taking delivery. In the Sri Lankan second innings, I saw the replay again. I saw the setups. There was hardly a single. It was just Sri Lankan batsmen trying to copy what Joe Root did. Joe Root is a good player of the sweep shot. Typically, subcontinent are able to play the spinners when they come down the track, and their defense is also much more certain to spinners than what it is of English batsmen. The Sri Lankan batsmen just didn't trust their defense, and I think it was because of that that they got bowled out for some 126 odd or 130, and that shouldn't really deceive England into playing two spinners against India, because Keshav Maharaj and George Linde and Dane Pete, they really went the distance when South Africa came here in 2019. Indian batsmen are going to feast on both those spinners if the pitches are same as what they were in 2016.
Well, you've pretty much covered all bases, as you said. We'll just take it over from your analysis, Gurkirat. Let's just have a look at the Indian squad first. So I'll just cover the bases that you talked about. This is a very envious top six, probably the best top six in the world at the moment. We'll probably
Mhm.
open with Rohit Sharma and I think for the moment Shubman Gill. What is your pick? Do you pick Mayank Agarwal based on home form, or you give the young lad Gill another chance at the top of the order because he's had a splendid series in Australia?
See, it's a very tough call, because ideally, I think that Mayank Agarwal shouldn't have been dropped in Australia for starters, because he's been your number one opener for good 2 years, but he got dropped, and then Shubman Gill has done pretty well. It's sort of unreal for a 21-year-old to play that well against Australia in Australia, and uh, there has also seemed to be some issue with Mayank's technique. The way he's taking out his stride. So I think if India do open with Mayank Agarwal again, then they would be creating problems for themselves as to who becomes the second opener. So I think they should stick with the opening stand that has worked so far in the two test matches. They should stick with it. They should open with Shubman Gill and Rohit Sharma. One down Cheteshwar Pujara, two down Virat Kohli, three down Rishabh Pant, and three down Ajinkya Rahane, and number six should be Rishabh Pant. But I think there's a case for the team management to be asking more from Ajinkya Rahane, the batsman. I think
True.
he's been underwhelming if you go by his standards. Someone like an Ajinkya Rahane having a average of 42, which is pretty much same of an Angelo Matthews. Rather, Angelo Matthews averages more, is not doing enough justice to the caliber of Ajinkya Rahane. I thought he played Nathan Lyon brilliantly in the first two tests, because he's been caught at the crease while playing against Nathan Lyon or Moeen Ali. Sometimes he gets caught on the crease and gets LBW, but he was brilliant. He was either coming down the track or go so far back and playing him late. So, I genuinely thought that the first innings in 100 in Melbourne would be sort of a second coming, but I was extremely disappointed with the way he got out in Gabba in both the innings, and didn't do much in Sydney as well. But I hope in this four test matches he's able to own the series. He's not had a 500 or for 500 run series in his entire career, and that is very surprising. He after playing 65 test matches, he doesn't have a test double hundred, which is again very surprising, because somebody who was probably your best batsman in 2014 2015 in the overseas cycle, you expect a lot more from him. And I say this with utmost certainty that when Ajinkya Rahane made his debut, he was a better batsman than both Virat Kohli and Cheteshwar Pujara when they made their respective debuts. But unfortunately, I don't know what is the particular reason. Ajinkya Rahane has not taken that next step, which you sort of you know which you sort of expect from good and great batsmen. So he's still good, but I think there's a lot of scope for improvement for somebody like him, and I hope that he does extremely well in the series. So I think that should be my top six going into the first test match. And I'd rather, regardless of how the result pans out, unless there's an injury, I'd keep that top six for the second test match as well.
True. Yes. As you pointed out, Ajinkya Rahane, the batsman, definitely has to step up. I think that Ajinkya Rahane, the captain, has done a brilliant job in Australia. It's time for Ajinkya Rahane, the batsman, to definitely step up in home conditions. And as you pointed out, this is probably the best top six that the world has at the moment. It's got a good mix of stroke makers with proper test match batsmen like Cheteshwar Pujara. So I think the balance is there. And yes, your point of playing Shubman Gill now is bang on from my point of view, because the lad at this young age has stepped up against that very potent Australian attack, and he's faced those conditions and he's thrived in those situations. So it's definitely a good period for Shubman Gill to start playing tests at home as well.
There's only
So
one
coming over,
drawback. There's only one drawback of this batting lineup, and that is if Rishabh Pant doesn't play, there is no left-hander. And
true.
if say India are batting on the fifth day in Chennai and there are enough foot marks, you never know what may happen. It could be just it could just be turn out to be Jack Leach's day, and the batting lineup may crumble. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it will probably happen or it will certainly happen, but Rishabh Pant also needs to play from that point of view. That if there are enough foot marks for a left arm spinner to exploit, then so I do think that Jack Leach is going to start and Dom Bess will not start, purely because of this reason, because Indian batting lineup is heavily right-handed dominated and not left-handed dominated, which would be another reason for India to play Washington Sundar, because he showed enough promise with the bat. So I think he's going to be number 7 in all likelihood, and then 8, 9, 10, 11 would be your two spinners and two pacers, or one spinner and three pacers, depending upon how it goes and how the pitch is.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair observation. As you pointed out, Rishabh Pant's maturity in tough conditions has definitely improved over the course of the series in Australia. We just hope that he can adapt himself to conditions in India, because in Australia, if you're looking at pace and bounce, in India, you're looking at a little more control and a little more patience with respect to spin and handling spill on the fifth day. So coming over to you, Shreyas, Gurkirat has covered pretty much all bases, and definitely I think we can concur with the 11 that Gurkirat has put out. Just one question for you. How much of an impact do you think Jadeja's absence is going to have on this Indian team? Because the Ashwin Jadeja combination with the Kuldeep catalytic effect is something that has, paid rewards for us previously in India. But now we are going in without Jadeja. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, especially I wanted to highlight this point in fact. So obviously Jadeja is a big miss since the last time England played at Chennai, day 5 of the last session, he cleaned up the entire England batting order to win us the test match and make it 4-0. So Jadeja at home is obviously even more potent than when he is away, is what I feel, because Ashwin Jadeja have won us so many test matches, and Sundar, we've spoken a lot about him, but still he has an experience of one test, so we can't entirely bank on Washington to deliver. So although he has performed brilliantly and Chepauk is his home ground, Jadeja I think will be a miss, but yeah, I think it should be fairly easy at Chennai, especially the track. I think it won't be a rank turner. So Chennai for decades, if you see the test matches, it's obviously a flat track from day 1, and day 4 and 5 might do something. So I expect a run feast at Chepauk. So Jadeja obviously, as you pointed out, is a big miss. But time for Washington to step.
Just adding on to what Gurkirat mentioned about Rishabh Pant being the only left-hander, if Jadeja was available, he would have slotted in straight at 7, and with the form he's in, he would have given us a double left-hander backup in the lower middle order, which I think will be a great miss too.
Yeah.
Another thing which I think Jadeja provides is that you have Kuldeep, you have Washington, and you have Ashwin. All of them bring the ball predominantly into the right-handed batsman and not take it away. Also, it's Washington, although bowls at a greater pace, but he's still inexperienced enough. And somebody like Joe Root, his most productive shot is the sweep. So and the pace at which both Ashwin and Kuldeep bowl, it is still easier to sweep them from a good length or a full length than what it is going to be to sweep Jadeja. So from that point of view, Indian team management might also look at Akshar Patel, because he's the only one who can take the ball away from right-handers. And England side is also, if you see Sibley, if you see Butler, who are good players of spin. Bairstow might come back after 2 test matches. all good players of spin also in the England side, except for Stokes, are mostly right-handers. So that might also play a part. So it depends. But I still see Washington Sundar starting ahead of Akshar in the first test if India decide to go in with three spinners.
True, definitely, good, Kirat. As you pointed out, Aksar will definitely provide that variety, and it's just I think as a just a close call between Sundar and Akshar, and I think it will definitely be taken based on the pitch and based on what the captain Kohli and team think tank view the situation as.
And
So
just
come,
one question before we move on to England. I mean, is there a possibility that they might drop Kuldeep and go with three paces and three spinners with Washington and Axer as all rounders? Because that might provide us an extra bowling option. I don't think six paces is needed, but I mean six bowling options are needed, but still it is an option to consider for the team
No,
management.
I don't see that happening because for that you will have to drop a batsman. You'll probably and India, we are already considering six batsmen. So
Yeah.
for that, I think India will have to drop a Ajinkya Rahane, which is not happening. So I don't see India playing going in with six bowling options at all. At most times in home conditions, India is able to win test matches with four bowlers only. The fifth is one where India sort of play the fifth bowler to have an extra option to also keep the pacers fresh and manage their workloads. But I don't see a six bowling option coming in. It will either be a 3-2 or a 2-3 depending upon how they see. But I see if Umesh Yadav's available or not. He's
No.
he's not available. Yeah. So if
yeah,
since he's
yeah,
not
he's still
available,
recovering.
so but Shami and Ishant and Bumrah are. So Shami, Ishant and Bumrah are. No, Shami is also not available.
Yeah,
Siraj,
Shami hasn't recovered from that broken arm, and I think we've seen some workout videos of Umesh Yadav. I think he's still on the path to recovery. So at the moment, we only have Sharma, Bumrah, and Siraj.
So I do feel it all comes down to the bounce that the pitch is offering. If the pitch is not offering a lot of bounce, then I think India will go in with two paces, which would be Bumrah and Nishant. If there is bounce, it could be Siraj who could be the third pacer, and then one of the spinners amongst Kuldeep and Washington might go out.
Yeah, yeah, that I think is definitely possible. So it's just a close call, as you pointed out, Gurkirat. I think it'll definitely be based on the pitch, and I think 2-3 or 3-2 should definitely serve us good for the first two tests in Chennai.
I'm
So
also very
moving on,
excited. I'm also very
yeah, yeah.
excited about Ishant Sharma because he's nearing 100 Test matches mark. I hope he completes it in this Test series because I thought that he might be able to achieve it in Australia where he first came to fame. But I genuinely hope that happens because the last time an India player reached the 100 Test match mark was in Chennai 8 years ago. I think it was Harbhajan Singh in 2013. Now it might happen in Ahmedabad, but it's been a long time coming for Ishant Sharma as well, and I hope it happens soon. He's also nearing the 300th wicket mark. He's at 297, so quite a few milestones ahead of him if he does well.
even Ashwin is nearing 400, so it will be interesting if he completes it before Nathan Lyon. So yeah, just 23 or 13 wickets, I think. Yeah, let's see. There's always hope.
Yeah,
Yeah, both Ishant Sharma and Ravichandran Ashwin have been pillars of this wonderful test team that Kohli has built over the last 5 to 6 years. And I think it's just fitting that they get to do their milestones in our home, India. And I think it'll be a great moment for both Ishant Sharma and Ravichandran Ashwin if they can get to their individual milestones. So we've talked about India. We've covered all bases about India. Now let's switch over to England. So Gurkirat was talking about the England squad as well, where he felt that only one of Bess or Leach would play, and he did feel that Mark Wood would be a big miss for England. So, Gurkirat, you also talked a lot about Joe Root, and we have lots of time to talk about Joe Root. But how is the batting shaping up above Joe Root and below Joe Root? Do you think that is going to be a major vulnerability for England?
it will be. I mean, if you consider the inexperience, it is Burns' first tour, it is Sibley's first tour, it is Crawley's first tour, it is Lawrence's first tour, uh, and there is going to be no Butler after the first test. Moeen Ali has had a downfall in his batting, because last time Moeen Ali did pretty well with the bat. And the good thing is that they have Stokes who's coming back. So I think how the 11 might shape up is Burns and Sibley open, and then Joe Root would be at four, one off Crawley, all Lawrence bats at three. Lawrence has shown good promise in Sri Lanka. Then there's going to be Stokes at five, Butler at six, or Butler at seven, because I think England would also like to go in with five bowling options, because they know if they go in with four bowling options, they could sort of get overwork their paces, because Anderson's not getting any younger. Somebody like Jofra, with the pace that he bowls, always needs to be managed, and that is where I think somebody like Ben Stokes becomes extremely important for them, because he'll also have to put in those overs. So the way I see England bowling lineup is that it would be the England 11 would be Burns, Sibley, Crawley, Root, Lawrence, Stokes, Butler, Anderson, Broad, Jack Leach, and Jofra Archer. I think that would be the first 11 that starts. Maybe if maybe when they reach Ahmedabad, they also might play in four paces, and play a Chris Wokes and drop one of the inexperienced batsmen and bring in a spinner, or they might not. But I sort of see this as the first 11. I would have loved a Mark Wood there, because with the ball reversing and the uneven bounce that sometimes subcontinent pitches offer on day four or day five, somebody like him with his pace could have been extremely handy. But now got to do the best of what you have. So I sort of see this as the 11, and Ben Stokes will have to play a huge role, not just with his bat, not just with the bat, but also to be able to manage the workload of the other three bowlers, other three paces.
Yeah, you're on mute, Krishna. So yeah,
Uh, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, Gurkirat. As you pointed out, I also see this to be the first 11. I think Sibley and Burns have a big job to play, because if we play Bumrah, then we have a very big weapon up top, and if we can get a couple of early wickets and expose Joe Root early, then that could be worrying signs for England. So I think definitely the people above Root should make sure that they are able to blunt the new ball and the early spell from Ishant Sharma and Jasprit Bumrah, and set up the game for Joe Root. Because if Joe Root does not get support from the top, and if he has to carry the innings all the way down to the last wicket, then it definitely puts a huge amount of pressure on Joe Root. And I think, please go ahead, Gurki.
They might also have to face a challenge which they've not really faced before, and that is playing Ravichandran Ashwin with the new ball in India. With the new ball, Ravichandran Ashwin in India is a very potent weapon, and I've not seen many players, especially on their first tours, do well. There was Hasib Hamid, I think last time, the 18-year or a
yeah,
19-year-old opener who did well, and even he struggled. I think it was the second Test match in Vizag where he batted for some 30-35 overs with Alastair Cook. But then, considering it was a day four pitch, he was batting very well, but a ball did stay low and he got LBW out. So that is also how they will play Ravichandran Ashwin with the new ball. Especially when they come out to bat the second time in Chennai, would be a huge challenge, because with the new ball, Ravichandran Ashwin is more lethal than what he is with the old ball. I think uh, Ishant Sharma with the older ball and Ravichandran Ashwin with the new ball. These are going to be two challenges for the English batsmen, because they've not, especially the four inexperienced ones, because they've not faced them before, and both of them are better bowlers than what they were the last time England came around in 2016. So somebody like Joe Root would know the challenges that are in front of him.
Yeah,
yeah. Another
yeah,
point that I'd like to highlight is yeah, of course, Ashwin and Ishant at it, but I feel that this is a better English batting lineup in like 7 or 8 years. This might be a horror opinion, but still, there have been some absolutely ordinary players that have played for England over the years. After the 4-0 Ashes drubbing at Australia, they've improved a lot, and they've started making good decisions. I mean, and one other fact that I wanted to highlight is Dom Sibley has a 200 against Ashwin uh, during the county season in 2019. He was 200 not out in the first innings and 100 not out in the second innings. Ashwin bowled over 40 overs to him. He couldn't get him out. I mean, sure, the conditions were different, but that should be a real confidence booster for him. And another point that I'd like to make is uh, they need to assess Anderson's fitness. So the 11, I think one of Anderson and Broad, they might be rested at Chennai because you have the pink ball test in Ahmedabad, and Jimmy Anderson with his form could be absolutely vital there. So this is what I feel about the England lineup, and definitely it's better than what they had in 2016 and previous tours that they have toured to many other countries. And I think there has to be some confidence in the England side. Even though they have rested Johnny Bairstow and all, I think this is a fairly decent side.
No, I agree to an extent because 2016 there was Ben Duckett, and he had
Yeah.
no clue how to play Ashwin. It was just like it was just like a walking wicket. But it would be interesting to see if somebody could play the role of a Keaton Jennings, because Keaton Jennings is an anomaly if you ask me. He has a very bad record
Yeah.
in England. Whenever he's come to Asia, he's done well. And
He
I
did
was a
well
bit
at Wankhede. Yeah. He did well at Wankhede, right? I mean,
yeah,
I think
he scored
he
100
got a
in
100. Yeah.
Wankhede. So, and he scored 100 odd, or he scored a lot of runs the last time England went to Sri Lanka
Yeah.
also. So would be interesting to see. As far as Dom Sibley is concerned, I was really impressed with the way he batted in the fourth innings in the Test match that
Yeah.
got over Sri Lanka. He was he knew the one thing that I think all English batsmen have become very good at doing is that they know which are the right lengths to sweep. They still don't come down the track, but when they are very confident of playing the reverse of both the reverse and the conventional sweep. They pick the lengths very well, and I think this is where a lot of Asian batsmen are lacking now. We don't see Asian batsmen playing the sweep. I think amongst the Indian batting lineup, I only saw Rishabh Pant playing the sweep in Australia. Cheteshwar Pujara didn't play it. Mayank Agarwal does play it, but he didn't get to play Nathan Lyon a lot. Ajinkya Rahane also doesn't play the sweep because he's gotten out LBW a few times playing the sweep, getting stuck on the crease. Ravindra Jadeja is not there. Shubman Gill also didn't play a lot of sweep. Rohit Sharma used to play sweep, 4 or 5 years ago, but he also didn't play the sweep. And I think somebody like Rohit Sharma doesn't even need to play the sweep, especially the way he comes down the track. So that is going to be interesting on how the Indian spinners also counter the threat of the sweep. I think that is where Kohli's captaincy will also come into play. That does he have a sweeper? Does he have a deep square leg for the English batsmen, especially for Joe Root, whenever he's playing the sweep? Because he got some 50, 60 odd runs in both his hundreds in against Sri Lanka through the sweep. So it will also come down to that, because sometimes run scoring is also equally important than taking wickets.
Maybe we should go to Gal another time and practice sweep. So Sri
Yeah,
Lanka, they were really atrocious.
yeah. As Shreyas and Gurkirat were discussing, I pretty much concur with all the points that you both have suggested. Definitely, how well we can contain the runs from the sweep is going to be a big factor to look out for. And I think we'll at the end of the series we'll have a definite stat coming up that England got most of their runs via the sweep. So I think that is pretty much assured. How the bowlers adjust to it? Do we pull back the length or do we go a little defensive on the sweep? I think for that we'll just have to wait and see what Kohli thinks about it. But yes, as both of you said, I think the England lineup is pretty straightforward. Just that they have to pick their bowling attacks properly so that they don't overdo one of the senior bowlers and lose out on a couple of paces even before the day-night test is here. Because as we've been saying all throughout, the day-night test probably is the only test where England have a slimmer of a chance. Where I think it could be 50-50 depending on how many of the paces are still left in the squad. So I think it's England will definitely look at that workload management and have an eye on it throughout each and every test. So we've talked about the squads. We've talked about what the strengths and weaknesses are going to be. It's time for us to predict the X Factor player of the series. So Gurkirat, starting off with you, if you had to pick one player from the Indian team and one player from the England team, who you think is going to really stand out in this series, who are those two?
For the English team, it's easy. I think you have to pick Joe Root. The last time he came here, he batted well. He unfortunately didn't have 100 to his name, but I think he got a 50 in every Test match in one of the innings. So you have to pick Joe Root, who's going to be the X factor. For India, it's a tough one. I mean, there are so many players who can do well, and who've shown their class. But I think I think for India, probably the X factor this time would be a Cheteshwar Pujara, because a lot of talk is about how he doesn't score runs fast enough, but people sometimes don't realize that the definition of intent is a very ambiguous one in test matches. It has to factor in a lot of things. It has to factor in the relative strength of the batting lineup. It has to factor in the bowling lineup you're facing. It has to factor in the match situation. It has to factor in who's bowling at the other end. But I think with Virat Kohli back, and matches being in India again, where there's not going to be a lot of swing once the first session is done, or even the first hour is done, we are probably going to see a different Cheteshwar Pujara, who will be a slightly more aggressive, because his strike rate in Test matches is still 45. And I think in India, especially in 2012 when England came, his 100 in Wankhede doesn't get talked about a lot because it got overshadowed by Kevin Peterson's 100. But that was a brilliant 100. He took India to 320 odd from 160 for six. And then his 100 in Vizag also in the first innings was pretty good. It again got overshadowed with Virat Kohli's efforts in both the innings. So I think he's going to be an important factor, because even if you have to negate the threat of a Anderson, or Archer, he's your best bet. With Virat Kohli's assurance in the side, I think he'll also bat a little more freely. I think he's going to be an X factor. But like I said, for India, it's very difficult to pick one X factor. You have to be excited about Gill. Sharma's also done well. There's Ashwin, who's been nothing short of a legend at home. So a lot of X factors which could be there, but I'll pick one, which would be Cheteshwar Pujara.
Fair enough, Gurkirat. Definitely, as you pointed out, Cheteshwar Pujara could hold the key because, as we talked before, he is the glue that combines our stroke makers at the top of the order and stroke makers below him. So he's kind of the standout player from the entire top six. And if he has a good series, then we can expect India to keep amassing 500, 600 runs every innings. Uh, Moving over to you, Shreyas, if you had to pick one player from the English squad and the one player from the Indian squad who you think are gonna really, hold the key for their teams, who would they be?
Yeah, for India, I think I have to pick Shubman Gill. So excited to see him perform down under, and now would be the time for him to start pad and make some runs, add some hundreds to his career, and Shubman Gill should make use of these Chennai flat tracks, and I think he has to make some runs to get his confidence up. That'd be a great kickstart to his career. And as far as England is concerned, um, I think Jofra Archer can make a difference. He did. I mean, IPL is a different ball game, but still, he did well in that Chennai game that he played in 2019. He did well in that absolute dead pitch, and he was trying to get something of the surface. So I think his pace can make a difference, particularly at Chennai. So these are these are two of my picks.
Yeah, so that's those are the X Factor players that Shreyas has gone for. Even though I'm the host, I think I'm allowed to pick X Factor players for both squads. So my X Factor player for India is going to be Virat Kohli. I cannot think of any other player other than Virat Kohli because Virat Kohli, when he's hungry for runs, when he's coming off the back of no cricket for a short period of time, is probably the deadliest cricketer ever in the planet because his hunger for runs, it actually supersedes everything. His form, his technique, everything gets superseded the moment he's hungry for runs. So I think it's going to be a 700-run series for Kohli. Hopefully, I'm not jinxing him, but I think it's going to be a big series for Kohli, and I'm predicting one more double hundred to that tally. I think he makes a record if he gets one more double hundred. I think as a captain and as a player, he gets one record. So I'm not sure what the record is, but my expected player is going to be Virat Kohli, 650 plus runs in the series. For England, I think it's going to be Ben Stokes. I'm not sure of how many test matches he's going to play, but even if you look at the test matches that India and England have played ever since Ben Stokes debuted, in the England series also, he won a couple of games purely with the bat, and I think one game he won purely with the bat and with the ball. Sorry. And in India also, he had a decent outing last time. Yes, he is Ashwin's bunny, but at the end of the day, he's still a class player, and he's probably one of the top three all-rounders going around the planet at the moment. So I think even Gurkirat mentioned that Ben Stokes' contribution with the ball is going to be crucial for managing the workload of the English pacers and the English spinners. So I think Ben Stokes will have a part to play for England in this particular series. So we're almost done with the series review. Just one bit left. So it's prediction time for the series. So Gurkirat, we've weighed both sides on the scale. We've weighed the conditions. We've weighed in the importance of the series with respect to the World Test Championship. What is your prediction for the scoreline for the series?
I think it should be 3-0 in India's favor. Not going to be too arrogant and say 4-0 because England are very much capable of putting in a good performance. But at the same time, this Indian side is very strong for that. I see them losing a test match. I think it should be 3-0. If it's a 2-0, I'd say that England have done really well because this Indian team doesn't lose at home. I mean, they've lost one test match in the last 8 years at home. That was on a ranked Turner. So they really don't lose at home. And I genuinely think that even if India plays say without a Kohli, without Pujara, or without a Kohli, without two of Kohli, Pujara, and Rahane, India can still beat teams at home. So I think it will be a 3-0. Just wanted to add a little bit to what you said about Virat Kohli's hunger. I completely second you on that. I think he's also coming off a 100 less 2020, and I think it's been long that he scored a 100 in any format. So let's hope that it's a big series for him because we all were very disappointed when he got run out in Adelaide because we all had anticipated and set ourselves up for 100 from Kohli. And when Kohli scores 100, it is not just about the way he bats. It is also about the theatrics which are there. It is also about the celebration. And when Virat Kohli has scored runs, you see a different Virat Kohli on the field as well. He's always in that phase. A lot of people think that it's not enjoyable, but I personally enjoy that a lot. Because I have seen a generation of Indian cricketers which have not been that aggressive and which have been very reserved. But Virat Kohli is someone who's very comfortable in being in your face, and that's a good change, and I genuinely enjoy it. So yeah, I hope he scores a lot of runs. I hope it's again it's sort of he has a similar year as to what he had in 2016 or 2018. I remember him scoring 4 double hundreds in 2016, and he scored one each in every test series that he played. So it would be good to see him amongst the runs. Probably go back to the number one ranking, which he's lost because he did not play. So yeah, it would be good fun if he scores runs, definitely, without a doubt.
True, Gurkirat. As you said, 3-0 seems to be a very fair verdict based on how the teams have lined up. Of course, if you make it 4-0, then congratulations to India. But I think anything less than 3-0 is probably well played, England. Coming over to Shreyas, how do you see this series panning out, and what is your prediction for the scoreline?
Yeah, I second Gurkirat and probably you on this. I think this will be 3-0 to India. They might draw a test match, so if they play disciplined and play their heart out, they can draw a test match at Chennai because I think the last time they should have drawn the test match. They collapsed in the final session of the final day. So I think with this side, it's a better batting side. I think they might be able to draw one test match, but 3-0 is my prediction. And obviously, since they're rotating, and I can't say that they're not taken this series important, but still they are prioritizing the World T20, which is absolutely understandable. I feel that England are the best limited over side in the world, and personally, they should try hard not to uh, win the World T20. So they have such a good side, and rightly so. I see many that they're not respecting the Indian opposition, but I think Chris Silverwood he explained very well why they've rotated the players. But still, even with the rotated players, I think this is a good England side, and they can maybe get a result. But of course, 3-0 is my prediction. Yeah.
Another thing is that we've seen foreign batting sides being able to draw a test match on the fifth day, because what happens with Indian wickets is that they sort of progress, they get slower and slower. So even when there is turn, the turn is so slow that you can still bat. We saw Australia draw a test match in Ranchi, and that is when Steve Smith got out in the first session on day 5. We saw Sri Lanka draw a test match in Delhi, and South Africa had also drawn a test match in Delhi, if not for the last session where Ashwin got De Villiers out, and then Umesh Yadav ran through the lower order. So there's obviously a chance that England would be able to draw one test match somewhere, because pitches also get very slow. And even if there's turn, that turn is so slow that you can sort of stay on the back foot and play it. So and this is where Jadeja becomes very, 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 very important, because what we have also seen in this Australia series is that we sort of take it for granted, especially in Asia and amongst Asian teams, that if your bowlers are bowling on day 5, a win is a guarantee, which it really is not, because you do need skills to bowl out teams also on day 5, because even though there is spin, the spin is pretty slow. So I think this is where India would really, really miss Jadeja when they have to bowl out England on day 5. So hence, I feel that England would be able to draw a test match somewhere. But yes, if India is able to pull off a 4-0 without without Ravindra Jadeja, then it speaks volumes of India's bowling quality a lot. Because without Jadeja, bowling out teams on day 5 is very difficult. But if India is able to pull it out and win 4-0, then India really, really deserve to be in the finals of World Test Championship without a doubt.
Yeah. So those are some really good observations, Kirat. As you said, on day 5, we have seen this. It's been a trend for the past few years. Somewhere, some teams have managed to take the match into day 5, and even though we've had a great bowling attack, the pitches have just not suited us to, get those last 7, 8 wickets. And a couple of test matches have been drawn like that. So hopefully, we just get a lot more competitive wickets, and let's hope for a evenly contested test series, with preferably India emerging out as winners, and hopefully we can seal the qualification for World Test Championship in this series itself without depending on other results. So a big thanks to Gurkirat and Shreyas for joining us today on this podcast. It was a pleasure having you today. We have a lot of content lined up for this particular series. So do like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us at Little Fellas handle on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with another video soon. Take care and bye bye.